Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Katie Isles. I'm sure you all know her as a model, presenter, she's a mum and a positive midlife campaigner. Our conversation is the blueprint of a normalised, should-be run-of-the-mill conversation that we should all be having. There are elements we all aim to change at this moment in time as Katie shares her story, but this is the conversation that brings change, that opens up the talk, and it's the one you want to have with all your friends. Katie, it's lovely to see you again. How are you?
I am all right, as manic as I always am, running around like a headless chicken. That is me. That is my life.
Well, I very much appreciate you taking some time to have a chat.
Welcome.
Would you like to start by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
So I am Katie Isles. I am a model, a presenter and a mum, really. I suppose those are my three main roles. I came into modelling quite late. Lots of people assume that I've done it since I was young, and I haven't. I actually started modelling at 41, a little bit by accident, but a very fortunate accident that's actually led me down a path that I'm quite excited on a daily basis by, really. Pushed a lot of comfort zones as well. So it's a very challenging thing to be doing. Yes.
How did you come into it then? What was the happy accident?
Well, basically, I had done a bit when I was a teenager, and I'd won a couple of local paper competitions, and I was in love with Just 17 magazine and used to know all the models' names. And, I was a bit obsessed back as a teen. It was something I always wanted to do. And I don't know, one thing didn't lead to another, and I ended up going to university. And then by the time I was 21, I felt I was too old to be a model. So I then got myself proper jobs. And then what happened was I was actually writing for a wedding blog at the time. I was loving what I was doing, but I was spending a lot of time by myself. Mm-hmm. And I love to chat. I love people. I like to be around people. And so I realised I didn't want to stop writing. I didn't want to stop this freelancer life that I'd now by this time created. I didn't want to have to commit to being in the same place all day, every day. I was enjoying the freedom. So I looked to do some like promotions work or something where I could do a little bit of this and a little bit of that around the other roles that it's like a portfolio career, I think it's called. Sounds fancy, isn't really. So basically I then approached a local agency and said, do you do any promotions work? Can I help out? I speak languages. Can I work at the NEC or whatever? And they said, no, we don't do that, but we will take you on as a model. And I just remember going, you do know how old I am, don't you? And they went, yes, there is a market for you. And that was it, basically. I didn't know how it was going to work, whether it would work. But fortunately, on the whole, it's turned out to be a great decision.
Oh, fantastic. And yes, of course, to push out of your comfort zones, but what better time of life to suddenly have another new challenge, as if you didn't have enough already, but still.
I know. I mean, luckily it was early 40s. I think if it had been post 45, the way that I have been in the last couple of years, I don't think I'd have done it. I absolutely don't think I would have been brave enough or had faith in myself or confidence to have pushed myself at that time. So I'm very fortunate that I did it in my early 40s and I was already in that space. Yeah.
Would that have anything to do with perimenopause?
Well, let's just think about where we are. So yes, absolutely would. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there and just wait for your questions, because knowing what I'm like, I go off on a ramble. You'd be like, no, we don't want to go in that direction. So I will, yes, it absolutely did have something to do with perimenopause.
We can go in any direction you like. All I was going to ask was, whereabouts are you in terms of perimenopause?
Okay, so I'm 49 now, and I would say that I first properly started symptoms around 45. Mm-hmm. However, I hadn't got a clue. And this is the very reason why I am here today and on my Instagram and everything, is because I am a very educated, articulate, open person. I share everything. I'm happy to talk to people. I'm not very good at small talk. I'm great at getting deep and dirty and nasty into conversations. And I thought to myself, let's say at about 47 and a 27, 47 and a half, okay, I think I know what this is. But I've just had the last 2.5 years of wandering around in the absolute wilderness, not having a clue what was happening to me and my body. And I just don't want anyone else to feel that alone, or the younger generations. I don't want them to have to get to this stage and feel like that.
Yeah.
So yes, so I would say I started around 45. I did have some night sweats before that, very early in my 40s. And I do remember waking up as I'm sure many of your listeners know, absolutely drenched, bedclothes drenched. But I was 41 or 42 or 43, I can't even remember. And I went, well, that's not the menopause because I'm far too young. And literally it happened a couple of times and I just dismissed it. However, I would say from 45 is when things started to ramp up and get a bit interfering with my day-to-day life.
And what did that look like? So night sweats seem to be one of those things that can happen a lot earlier. And because, certainly I didn't even know about perimenopause then when I was 41 and having night sweats as well.
Yeah.
Didn't know about it, didn't know what it was, would never have attributed the night sweats to any kind of hormone. I thought maybe I was tired, stressed, or probably I'd had a couple of glasses of wine and put it all down to that. What happened next and what did that look like for you?
Okay, so as I say, from about 45 onwards, I just started to get symptoms, which, just like you, I'd never heard of the word perimenopause. I didn't really understand what the menopause meant. So to me, I'd moved away when my mum hit the menopause. So all I knew about the menopause was she got a bit grumpier and she got very, very hot and didn't wear a coat for 10 years. That was all I knew. So at 45, I started to get symptoms like joint aches. Now, I exercise, I look after myself, I eat well, all these things. And yet sometimes I'd go down on the floor to try and do a plank or something like that. And my wrists would be killing me. And I'd be like, but I did this yesterday and I was absolutely fine. What's the problem? Again, I wasn't joining any dots at this stage at all. I started to get really itchy skin, to the point where I'd be watching television in an evening, I'd be scratching my upper arms or my legs, and to the point where I was almost raking off the skin. And I'm not someone that's ever had eczema or particular skin problems, redness, dryness, nothing. So that was a bit strange. Again, I'm still like not putting any dots together. I had terrible, terrible fatigue. And we're not talking, oh, I'm a bit tired, I need an early night. It would literally be about 2:30 of an afternoon. And it was like someone had drugged me. It was that intense. Wherever I was, whatever I was doing, it was like, can I just lie down right now and someone just let me sleep? Because it was stopping me living my life. And then, of course, you start wondering, is this something serious? Is this something really bad that's going on with me? You start Googling and you start, and then, of course, it comes up with everything. My mood was all over the place. I've always been a bit of an anxious person. I'm not going to say I've never had it before. I'd have real peaks and intensity and like anxious over things. I've never been anxious before. For example, if I'd go in a car park, and I felt that the car park was a little bit too small, I'd feel like, oh, I can't park in here, and I'd literally just drive out the car park. That's never happened to me. I drive up and down the country with my job and it's not an issue. So little things like that. And palpitations. I have really strong palpitations that, again, I've never had a heart problem or anything. And I started to go, oh, like you'd literally have to stop what you're doing and just hand goes on heart and you'd be like, breathe, we're fine. And then obviously brain fog. You're going to experience that during the conversation today.
Yes, same here.
I'm just going to say that right now. There will be times during the conversation where I'll start a sentence and I won't finish it because I'll have no idea where I was going with that. So I had that. And then the other thing, finally, that I said, I remember very clearly saying to my husband, and since I have heard so many women say this, it's worrying. I think I have early onset dementia. And I remember those words coming out of my mouth to my husband. And of course, him going, don't be so stupid. You're too young. You're this, you're that, and whatever. But I have heard so many women say that. And that scares me to death because it is unnecessary. Those were my main symptoms. Ironically, it was the fatigue in the end that helped me put the dots together, because all of a sudden I felt like this before. When have I felt like this? And it was when I was very early pregnant with my daughter. And that was how I knew I was pregnant 18 years ago, because I was working in an office, typing on my laptop, whatever I was doing, and all of a sudden, bang, 2 days in a row. And I went, oh, this is weird. Went and got pregnancy tested, an early pregnancy test, and I, fortunately was pregnant. And it was that made me go, perhaps this is a hormonal, and perhaps I need to start looking into this.
Wow. That's a brilliant piece of detective work, because it is so hard to join the dots and believe that it's hormonal if you don't know what's coming up as well. So did you have an awareness of perimenopause existing?
No. I literally thought the menopause hits around 51, 52, and you stop your periods. As I say, you get hot flushes and you have major mood swings. That was my knowledge of the menopause in a nutshell. So perimenopause was a word I'd never heard of. The long list of symptoms, didn't know existed. I knew nothing. And that is what absolutely shocks me, because, as I say, 2.5 years in what I call the perimenopause wilderness was unnecessary.
Yeah.
It did not have to happen, which is why I'm so glad people like you, Hattie, and people like me and everybody else that is talking about this openly, because now there's going to be a woman listening to this podcast that goes, oh, I've got that and that and that. I didn't know that. Or there's going to be a younger woman. I've heard people say we're scaring younger women. This is driving me potty. I can't think of a polite word. No, it's driving me potty. We're not scaring younger women. My aim by talking about this and being so open about my personal journey is menopause itself is not scary in the slightest. However, entering into perimenopause with no knowledge, Googling symptoms, wondering what is happening to you, wondering why you can't finish a sentence, wondering why you are so tired you think you're seriously ill, that is scary. So
I agree.
Yeah.
And having daughters as well, I openly talk about everything with them. They are probably the best versed on perimenopause and menopause. But speaking to some younger women in their late 20s, early 30s recently, they had no idea how much they didn't know and were very grateful for the knowledge. We had a big old chat about it, and now they know what to look out for. But you're absolutely right. The lack of knowledge, lack of understanding is the scary part. How did you discover it?
As I say, the fatigue was the glaringly obvious thing. And then what happened was, because I started to talk about it on my Instagram account, I was actually approached by a brand that was promoting their menopause supplements and also a service that they were offering of a private menopause GP. So I was very, very fortunate, because basically they said, would you like a chat with our menopause GP? And I went, well, yes, I am absolutely going to grab your hand off for this, because by this point I was part of like the menopause community on Instagram, and I was hearing different stories, and some of them horrendous stories about the lack of access to a GP. And obviously this is during COVID times as well, where we all know the NHS was under, such immense pressure. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to go to them about this. This isn't important enough and all this. So when they offered me this menopause GP, I literally went, yes, please. So I had basically a half an hour chat with this woman, and she said to me, Katie, you are most definitely perimenopausal. You have listed so many symptoms. I would actually advise you going on HRT and, blah, blah, blah. And I just went, oh no, I'm not ready for all this. It was, although in one way it was a relief that someone had told me this is what's happening, I then felt all of a sudden like a bit overwhelmed with all this information, and I've got to go on HRT. And don't get me wrong, she wasn't like, you must do it. She said, with your level of symptoms and how it's actually affecting you on a daily basis, I would recommend it. At no point was she trying to push it down my neck. But I was like, oh, well, thank you for all that. That's brilliant. Shared it online and told my little community what had happened. And then literally, it took, so that, hang on, April, May, June, July, August, September, August. So that's 6 months later, pretty much, I was on HRT because things had literally taken a nosedive, really. My mood in particular had plummeted, and not just in an anxious way. I was probably depressed. If I was going to do the tick box at the doctors, do you do this? Do you feel this? Do you do this? I think I would have then had a big neon light above me saying she's depressed. I would wake up in the morning and start crying before even a thought had gone into my head. Whereas up until that point, I had symptoms that were manageable. They weren't great. They were affecting my life, but I was like, this is manageable. This started to affect my life in such a detrimental way. I tried everything, the eating, the sleeping, the walking in nature, the exercise, no alcohol. I did everything that we would all recommend to a friend. And I was still waking up and crying. That was enough. And then, so I did then go to the GP and say, hello, I think I'm probably perimenopausal. Can I please have some HRT? Unfortunately, I had one that said, yes, you can.
How was that to begin with? Because for many women, it works first time and it's wonderful. But for an equal number, it's quite a rocky road trying to find the right dosage, the right brand, even the right time. How was it for you?
I think I'm one of the lucky ones. I do think I'm one of the lucky ones. So I was put on estrogen and 2 pumps a day. And I have the Mirena coil, so I didn't need additional progesterone, which was handy because it's just one less thing for me to remember more than anything else. And it was so funny because I'd been reading about everyone's stories and listening to their stories online. And I remember one woman basically felt a difference after 5 days. So day 5 arrived and I was like, oh, is it going to be me? Is it going to be today? And day 5 came and went and there was no change and I'm still crying and I'm still feeling crap. And I actually did feel a bit sad after day 5. So anyone who's listening, don't set that day in your head based on anybody else's experience. I do then have to say that I do remember the day, and it was day 13. And I dropped my daughter off at a dancing class, so it's obviously Saturday. I was driving back home and I was singing along to the radio. And I went, you're singing along to the radio in the car. You're feeling lightness. You're feeling a joy. What is this strange sensation? So I really got my attention and I went, don't count your chickens. Don't count your chickens. It's not going to last. It's just a blip. It's just a blip. And basically I then waited for the next day and the next day and the next day. And I stayed in this like lightness place. And I went, oh my God, something's happened. Something's changed. And it was as simple as that. It was day 13, little light bulb changed. I do feel incredibly fortunate. It didn't stay that way, but it did start magnificently.
How long did it last?
Well, unfortunately, about a month after this lightness, I caught COVID.
Oh, no.
And it was a bad dose of COVID. So I then ended up with long COVID. And there is a real overlap of symptoms of long COVID and perimenopause symptoms. So it then actually started, and when I saw the GP about 3 months into my long COVID, because you have to wait for 3 months for it to be officially classified as long COVID. At the 3 months when I met a GP, she was like, I'm not sure how many of your symptoms are perimenopause now and how many are long COVID. So she told me to up my HRT, 1 pump, in the hope that maybe the perimenopause symptoms might be diminished and she can actually work out how many are actually long COVID, long-term symptoms. But basically during the whole time, which was I was again quite fortunate, it was 4 months of being ill. It's like the HRT just stopped working completely. There was the mood dipped, my confidence expired again. But it's not really surprising because I couldn't live a life. Putting a load of washing in the machine at that time was enough for a whole day. That would then wipe me out and I'd have to go to bed. So I'm not really surprised I didn't feel a lot of joy and my confidence wasn't great and I wasn't feeling great about myself because I wasn't living a life. So it was then probably took, after the long COVID passed, about another 3 months for what it felt like the HRT to kick back in again. So it was quite a long time where it couldn't battle its way against the long COVID. But now it's playing ball again now. We're back on track. We are back on track.
Oh, yes. Thank goodness for that.
Yes, yes.
How did you cope? There are going to have been some pretty challenging, slightly dark moments. Did you ever give up hope?
Yes. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm certainly not saying I got to the point where I wanted it all to end by any means, but I certainly lost hope. I thought, I'm back in the dark place of the previous year, which had disappeared for that very brief time, but it had disappeared when I started the HRT. I was very, very low. I'd lost, as I said, my confidence was non-existent. I'd lost a lot of work. I'd lost work due to COVID times, and then I'd lost work due to ill health. And I do a job that depends on you looking good. It depends on you being able to run all over the country and drop things and go and do a job, and even work offers weren't coming in. It was like I dropped off the radar. So my whole career had sort of imploded. So in many ways, my life had sort of just disappeared from me. And it was at a time when my confidence was at such an all-time low. I thought, how am I ever going to get back? How am I going to get my career back? How am I going to get my life back? How am I just going to feel good about myself when I look in the mirror? That had all just disappeared. So yes, I did. I did give up hope. And then I think I hit rock bottom, and I had an argument with my husband, and we're not big arguers. And I just went, I'm so fed up of being you, Katie. I don't want to be around you. I don't like who you are. I don't like being with you. And I just went, enough. It was literally like I'd hit rock bottom and I went, enough. So obviously I was already on the higher dose of HRT. I stayed on that. I didn't want to keep messing around. So I kept that consistent, but I stepped up the mindfulness. I stepped up the getting outside. I stepped up. I am really going to make myself a priority. I am going to make myself feel good. And I am just going to stop being this miserable cow because you're doing my head in. I don't know how it happened, but it worked. I literally dragged myself every day. It took a long time, but it did feel like I was dragging myself out of this horrible dark place. And somehow I did it. I can't put it down to one thing, but I think it was just a combination and a sheer bloody determined mindset that I was fed up of being me.
Good for you. And I'm very glad it worked. Sometimes yes. We do all need to hit rock bottom, and I hope that nobody listening does, because you would never wish that on anybody.
No.
But very occasionally it happens, and that is the springboard back up.
Yes.
So,
yes.
What are you doing now to keep yourself feeling and looking completely fabulous?
I think the main thing is I remember these crappy times. I don't dwell on them. I don't worry about them. I don't think, oh my God, I'm going back there at all. But I think life comes at you, and midlife is hard, because we are generally the sandwich generation. We may have parents, if we're lucky, but they're getting older. We may have young children that are running us ragged. We may have teenagers in the house that are like, whoa. I mean, we've got 2 girls in the house, hormone-tastic, 3 of us. We're all like 2 teens and me. We're a great combination. But we are that sandwich generation where we still have dreams, we still have ambitions, we still have jobs that we want to do, we still have lots we want to do. So life is hard, and it is never going to stop. And we can dream for that moment where everything is lovely and calm, and it just doesn't happen. So life happens, and we just have to do our best to find the joy, find the happiness, find the excitement, find the whatever it is that we need personally in our lives, and grab it whenever we can. So it's mainly that kind of mentality that I have nowadays. Don't get me wrong. Before all this, I was an incredibly positive person. I am one of life's yes sayers. I'm one of life's go-getters. Even if things scare me, I want to do it because I know how good you feel at the other side.
Yes.
So it's very much, I'm sort of glad I've had those dark times, because they definitely make me appreciate all the nice days, all the easy days, all the happy days, all the silly days. and all the positives that come. And I think sometimes you don't appreciate those until they've been taken away from you for a period of time.
That's a very good point. Your job requires you to look fantastic and have loads of energy and run around. Do you have any top tips?
Right. Well, I am one of those boring people that does look after myself, and I do make it a priority. Exercise to me is a non-negotiable nowadays. It hasn't always been this way because people look at me and they go, oh yeah, but you're so slim and you're naturally this. And yes, I'm naturally tall. But a few years ago, I didn't look like this. I just decided I don't want to look like this anymore. So what can I do to make myself look like I want to look? Mm-hmm. And so exercise now is a non-negotiable to me. But I mainly do that for my mental health rather than my physical health. Actually, the physical side is like a bonus that comes afterwards. Does that make sense?
It does. I feel completely the same way.
Yeah, it's more, and I don't do it for ages. I literally get up in the morning and most days, not every day, I do 20 minutes. So I'm not one of those that's like an hour in the gym and an hour and a half of this. For me, it's got to be manageable. It's got to be something that I can fit into my life. So it's up 20 minutes and then get on with the day. Also, I do watch what I eat. That doesn't mean I don't eat pizza. I absolutely adore pizza and I love cake. You know, I am not one of those people that deprives themselves of everything. But what I do is go, okay, what I noticed, I used to work at Cadbury's chocolate factory and I became quite addicted to chocolates. Every afternoon, you know, that slump after you've had your lunch. So I'd eat some chocolate because there was loads of chocolate in the oven. So I'd be eating chocolate and I realized I was addicted to it and I didn't like that. So nowadays I'm still the same. If I feel like, right, you've had sugar at the same time every day now for the last 3 days, just break it for a couple of days and then you can go back on it. So I'm very mindful about what I eat. I do look after my skin, but not with anything major, not with anything expensive or anything. It's part of self-care, really. I'm actually not a believer that most skincare does much. I think that comes from within. It comes from the food you eat, the water you drink, how you're looking after your body. That reflects in your skin. But however, I like the ritual of putting things on my skin, and I've got into face yoga and face massage. And again, that's just part of, you know, looking after me. And that's never selfish. You know, I'm talking about like 5 minutes at a time. I'm not talking about 3 hours in a bath. We're too busy to do all that. But those little bits, those 5 minutes, 10 minutes and 20 minutes where we literally grab that and do something for us, then allows us to be much better people outside or with our family or whatever.
To round off, I have found that perimenopause continually teaches me lessons, whether I want them or not. What is the greatest life lesson so far that you have learned from this experience?
I'm probably going to repeat what I've just said. I think you have to make the most of every day because it's never going to be easy and no great thing is ever going to land in your lap. So you will have good days where you are a flipping superwoman. You will don that cape. You will take on the world, whether that's cleaning your house from top to bottom and finding time to watch Loose Women or whatever it is. You will have superwoman days. You will also have days where you just want your elasticated joggers and ginger nuts. And that is okay. What I've learned is just grab all the good stuff that you possibly can. Say yes, grab life. Live it, love it as much as you possibly can.
Katie, thank you so much for your time and for all your wonderful energy. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And thank you for being so candid and honest and open about how you've been feeling. I'm so glad that it's all going well. And long may that continue.
Exactly. Fingers crossed. Who knows? But I'm going to, as I say, dance until I can no longer dance.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Katie.
All right.
You take care
too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You can find Katie on Instagram at Katie Isles, on Twitter at IslesKate, and use the hashtag #MadForMidlife. Follow Real Menopause Talk and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you could do us the favour of leaving a review, particularly in Apple Podcasts, that would be terrific. It helps signpost others to find us and bumps us up the charts, which makes us more interesting to those outside. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.